What's going on, everyone? My name is SiahZ, and welcome to our Crossbow Huntress Amazon build. This build utilizes the brand new crossbow brought in the last Lament, doing over 120 million DPS, being able to shred pinnacle boss within a second or less, doing 2 to 3 man boss carries with no problem. We also have screen wide and even off-screen chain clears with the build as well, being able to shred T16 juiced maps, and overall the build is a blast to play with the brand new crossbow and the new skill the new crossbow actually introduces. Before we get into the video, if you guys are enjoying the build guides and you're enjoying the type of content I'm making on the channel, do consider hitting a like on the video and a subscribe to the YouTube channel. It does help me out immensely, and it also helps with the YouTube algorithm, and in turn currently that is one of the best ways right now to support me. Also should be live on YouTube and Twitch streaming. The link for that will be in the description as well as the comment section of the video. All right, let's get right into it. So first thing we can get into here is the gear. We are running the Last Lament unique crossbow. This is a really cool crossbow. Basically, it is going to grant us a skill called Composed Requiem. Now, basically, we get 3.3 anguish per second, and the skill will charge up over time. Once we have 100 anguish, we can use the skill. That'll last for 12 seconds, and basically it'll convert 60% of our fizz damage to cold and have a 1.6 meter impact radius and stuff. So it's kind of similar to like AoE skills like Magnetic Salvo, where you can really cluster a lot on a single enemy and get a lot of overlapping damage, which makes the skill really good for single target bossing. And this is basically what I wanted to build around to achieve all that insane boss DPS that we're actually currently doing with the build. Now, on top of that, we will get a lot of good like increased fizz and attack speed, etc. But the cool thing also about this bow is that once we are basically on the last bolt, we basically will consume 300 life to have infinite ammo. So as long as we have the life to pay for it, we'll basically never have to reload with the crossbow. From there, we are running the deepest tower. Obviously, since we want to go hit based and we want to do the most damage possible, this does allow us to do a lot of DPS, being able to, count enemies on the life, get a lot of increased bonus from the tree for like damage, lucky hits, etc. This is amazing to run with the build and does enable a lot of DPS. For our gloves, we are just running some rare gloves. I wanted to go with this because I needed to get the reses to be res capped, and on top of that, I wanted to get some extra damage and accuracy to try to get that accuracy scaling for our crit chance up even higher, to be able to try to achieve that like 80%, etc. crit chance, to have a decent value overall, to be able to actually consistently crit with Composed Requiem on rebossing and stuff. But you could alternatively run maybe like Exile gloves to be able to have crits have instant leech if you feel like the life leech is not enough. But in my opinion, just getting like life per enemy killed on the gloves allows you to have that basically like instant leech almost, and we basically, like I said, have so much overleeching that we're always at full life when we're actually going and mapping and stuff like that. For our body armor, we are running hybrid evasion energy shield with obviously tri-res to be res capped. I found this the best way, just running with deepest tower and stuff, to have the most survivability, since we can't really go full CI like energy shield, since we do need to have life leech and stuff. So alternatively, maybe you could go with like damage taken from mana and try to mana stack and stuff like that, and go like full evasion life instead of hybrid. That might be better, but I found this case to be good enough and stuff like that, to have a decent overall survivability to the actual build, going like hybrid evasion energy shield. So that's what I did. For the boots, again, I went evasion energy shield hybrid. Now I do have like increased effective socketed items with move speed runes in there. Obviously you don't need to have that. I just had this left over from our move speed build, and I threw it on here because I was like, this is just gonna give us more move speed, it has the reses I want, why not use it? So that's why we went ahead and ran it in the build. For the jewelry, we are running Headhunter. Obviously for mapping, we're gonna get a bunch of modifiers like more chaos resistance, temporal bubble, a bunch of stuff, haste that we can get to really help survivability and clear speeds. That's why I went ahead and ran it there. We are running double breach rings. Now for your breach rings, you do want to look for, if you can, like physical cold damage, increased cold damage, or you could do like lightning cold, increased cold damage, something like that. It will allow us to have a really good amount of actual damage overall, since Requiem is cold based, so it does help for single target and stuff like that. Obviously we do need to roll some dex and intelligence and stuff, but if you can roll like a physical damage leech on your rings, or if you can roll it on like gloves or something, and it's kind of nice to have to stack more leech overall. For our other ring, we do have cold lightning damage on this with intelligence. It does help kind of get to that what do you call it, intelligence threshold, since we do need like strength and dex and stuff like that, so it does help. Obviously if you can roll mana per enemy killed on like your ring or something like that, or just get a Joel with percent mana on kill, that will basically give us full mana back when we're going and clearing, stuff like that, which is really nice. For the amulet, we are running a Jade amulet just with dexterity. Now having like plus level to projectile skills is really nice, additional spirit, etc., like more energy shield, evasion, if you have to have reses, etc., roll that on there. For the Anoint, we are running Finality. Basically, this is just getting us a ton more damage with hits against enemies that are on low life and stuff like that. So that's why we want to go ahead and anoint that. For the back bar, we are running a wand with just damage, as extra cool damage on the actual rune and stuff, but we want to look for basically crit chance and increased chance of shock, since we are going to be running ball lightning and stuff like that, to actually be able to, you know, shock the enemy consistently. And we do have cold exposure on our ball lightning, so having just that rune in for that damage is extra cold will basically just allow us to be consistently applying cold exposure to the enemy, which gives us a lot more damage. Obviously, Effigy of Cruelty, since we're running spells, crit hits will apply stacks of crit weakness, allowing us to get a lot more crit chance overall. Now we can get into the skills of Requiem. We want to go ahead and run Elemental Focus on it for more elemental damage, and we don't care about inflicting elemental ailments, that's fine. Obviously, we're running Execute since we have Deepest Tower, so that's 50% more damage against enemies that are on low life. We're going Overextend since we are going for crit build, that's 30% more critical damage bonus overall to it. And then finally, Pinpoint Critical, obviously, to have way more crit chance with the build. Now, obviously, without it, we, you know, only have like a 65, 70%, and then with it, obviously, it's like an 80. So it's really needed to run Pinpoint Critical here, in my opinion. Now, for our main skill for clearing, we are running Explosive Shot. So what we're going to do, basically, is we're going to support Explosive Shot with a Primal Ardiment, and then we're actually going to take Pinpoint Critical and Overextend off of Requiem to run on Explosive Shot, just for mapping and stuff. And like I said, if we're bossing, we'll swap those two back on Requiem. But like I said, we're running Overextend and Pinpoint Critical on Explosive Shot, since we do want to be critting with it. So that's why we run it there. Obviously, we're running Fork with it to help with clearing, to be able to screen wide clear and stuff like that. And finally, Scatter Shot as well to shoot more projectiles out with the actual skill. We are running Orb of Storms. We're basically running this so we can get like Font of Rage and stuff and have Rage Generation. Going also with Font of Blood, Font of Mana and stuff like that for more mana regen, more life regen, etc. And then Persistence on it as well to have more duration onto it so we don't have to cast it as often. Obviously, we're running Hypothermia, so this way we can reduce their cold resistances since we are running, you know, Requiem, which is a cold based skill and stuff. So obviously we're supporting that with Heightened Curse for having increased magnitude of it, Ritualistic Curse to have increased area of effect of the skill, and then finally Cursed Ground to basically turn it into an AoE skill that if they step into it, they'll automatically get cursed. So it's a really nice quality of life there. Now we get into our Ball of Lightning. Obviously, we want to go ahead and run this with Conduction to have 100% more chance of shock, to be able to consistently shock more. Overcharge, obviously, to have more magnitude of shocks with the skill. Lightning Exposure, since Requiem obviously isn't like 100% cold, it's just 60% fizz converted to cold, so we're still doing like lightning damage, you know, stuff like that with it. So we still want to have Lightning Exposure and stuff on there to reduce the lightning resistances. Obviously, Strip Away to have increased effect of the exposure, and then we are running Cold Exposure as well. So like I said, since we are running that rune to gain cold damage on the wand, this basically will allow us to consistently apply cold exposure so the enemy will have less cold resistance, making Requiem do more damage. Now, I do run Herald of Ice here with Precision in. So basically what I'm doing in bossing and stuff like that, I will take off Cast on Freeze, obviously, because we need Voltaic Mark. So I'll take Voltaic Mark off and just like slot in a skill so we can use it. And then obviously I'll turn Cast on Freeze off and throw Herald of Ice on. Now, I am looking, and I'll update it in the build once I get it, to get like a body armor or something with, you know, tri-elemental res, etc. with the Spirit. So this way we can actually have everything on and we don't need to turn anything off. All we'll have to do is just take Voltaic Mark out, put it in, you know, it's a normal skill to use. But that's why I have Herald of Ice here. It is really nice to get increased cold damage as well, since we are running Coming Calamity on the tree. But from there, basically we are running Wind Dancer for obviously the increased evasion per stage. So this way we'll get 30% more evasion, have more survivability with the build. We're going Unbreakable on that to have increased stun threshold. Energy barriers, this way whenever we get stunned with the skill, our energy shield will instantly start recharging. Charming Bounty, so this way if the skill kills any enemies, we get 100% more charm charges. And then finally Arm's Length to have more knockback distance on Wind Dancer. Now to our main clearing skills and how we actually clear a loop and stuff like that and achieve like, you know, screen wide, off screen chaining, etc. We are running Cast on Freeze with Voltaic Mark. We basically want to chain loop these two into each other. So we're running and supporting that with Magnified Effect to have more area of effect. Reach, again, to have more area of effect of the skill. And then Innervate. This way it'll gain damage as lightning damage and stuff. And then we're going Impetus to have more increased energy. And we just run Innervate in here. So this way, you know, Voltaic Mark will do a lot more damage and stuff like that. Then for our Herald of Thunder, we're going old school with this and we're running like cold stuff in here to be able to freeze with the skill. So this way, once we, you know, kill an enemy, we're running, you know, cold damage and stuff like that. Since we have a lot of flat of it on rings with Explosive Shot, we'll then freeze enemies, generate the energy, especially with our Herald of Thunder as well. Since we're proccing that, and that's also freezing enemies and we're killing them, it'll chain into our Cast on Freeze, which Voltaic Mark will then blow up, which will then, you know, kill a bunch of enemies, and then we'll rechain into our Herald of Thunder, and then we'll freeze more enemies, and then it'll rechain back. So we get a really good and nice loop to basically be able to like off-screen clear and stuff like that. So again, we're running Glaciation on Herald of Thunder with Deadly Herald to have more damage. Ice Spice, this way we'll gain 35% damage is extra cold, and then a Long Shot to have 30% more attack damage. And then finally we have Embiter as well, so this way if supported skills would gain extra damage of other types, we'll get cool damage instead. And since we are running like Against the Darkness and other stuff on the tree for a little bit extra cool damage, and you know, etc., as well as the damage is extra of all elements, runes on our crossbow, all that can translate into more cold, allowing our Herald of Thunder to chain and, you know, freeze better, allowing the chain into cast on freeze to be a lot more consistent. Now we can get into the tree and ascendancy. So I went with Amazon here. One, I want an accuracy stack for crit chance, since the last lament has 0 like increased crit chance on it, so it helps us be able to play crit based build a lot easier. On top of that, obviously we sacrifice life, so we need a way to really recuperate life a lot. So it's either Lich or Amazon, and Lich you pretty much get really no damage besides being able to run like energy shield and not have to worry about the life sacrifice. But like again, you get no crit chance, no damage really at all. So Amazon's a lot more DPS, and we can basically sedate that life with the amount of leech that we're getting. So that's why I went into Mystic Harvest as well, since we have a lot of elemental damage. That'll help our leech. Normally it's just fizz damage that leeches, but now it's our elemental damage as well, which is really nice. So from there, we're going to go Predatory Instinct for 50% more damage against enemies with open weaknesses. So rare unique enemies, we get 50% more damage there. And then finally, I went in for the kill, just for that 40% increased skill speed, again with enemies with open weaknesses in our presence. For the skill tree, we're basically going to go down into Primal Instinct, into Eagle Eye. Obviously, we need that increased accuracy since we're accuracy stacking and stuff. We're going to come down, obviously, head over here and go into all this full like damage with, you know, enemies on the life and stuff. So Stars Aligned hits is lucky against enemies on life, which is huge, allowing us to double reroll our values to get the higher damage roll, which is nice. And then obviously Finishing Blows, again, increased damage against enemies on the life. So we get a lot of DPS increase there. We're going to come down again and go into Precision Salvo. This is a lot of increased accuracy, a lot of increased attack speed, which is really nice for the build. That's a lot of DPS. We're going to come down here on the right side and go into Cooked. A lot of increased critical damage bonus. That's why I want to take it there. We're also going to be going into Escape Velocity for the increased evasion rating and move speed and stuff like that. I'll get into the jewels, by the way, at the end. Then we're going to be coming down and going to Catalyst with weapons at 1 points for the increased, basically, elemental damage and stuff that we get. And then obviously Stand and Deliver as well for the increased critical damage bonus against enemies within 2 meters. And since we are running Deepest Tower, we basically need to be within about, I think it's a 3 meter range. So Stand and Deliver is basically always up against bossing. Again, we're going to weapon set 1 and a Maiming Strike for the increased attack damage and stuff. And chance to maim is nice. And with weapons at 2 points, we'll go into Frazzled for the increased magnitude of shocks. So this way we can help get to that 100% magnitude value. Again, we'll come down with weapons at 1 point and go into Acceleration for the move speed, but mainly the skill speed, which is nice. Going into Falcon Dive, since we do have a good amount of accuracy rating. That's increased attack speed for 250 accuracy, allowing us to get a lot more attack speed overall. And then obviously the stuff leading up to its crit chance accuracy, which is really nice. Going into this jewel socket down here, coming up and going into Coming Calamity, allowing us to get that increased like lightning damage, cold damage, etc., since we are affected by the heralds. We're going to be coming up and taking this full crit cluster on the right. So like Heart Stopping is increased crit chance and intelligence, Heart Breaking is increased strength and crit damage, and then finally Struck Through is 1% more crit chance to the base, which is really nice since, you know, the last lament has 0 crit chance added to it. So it goes from a 5% to a 6%, which is pretty nice. Again, going into Enhanced Reflexes for the increased dex and evasion rating, allowing us to have a little bit better survivability. Again, I'll get into the jewels after we're done with the main like passive points. We'll be heading up and basically with weapons at 1 point going into Throat Seeker for that increased crit damage bonus, which is really nice. Again, going all the way up into Spectral Ward. This way we can get a lot more max energy shield per evasion rating on our body armor. And since we are running hybrid, evasion rating energy shield, we are going to get a lot more energy shield overall because of that. Then we're going to be coming down and going into the full basically crit cluster up here. So like True Strike again is like more crit chance, more dexterity, jugular, more intelligence, more crit damage bonus. And then these 3 damage on critical nodes is a ton more increased damage if we've dealt a crit basically recently. So for weapons at 2 points, we're basically going to be coming down and taking General Electric, Harmonic Generator, like Unbound Forces. All this is a ton of increased magnitude of shock that we inflict, duration, you know, all that good stuff. which allows us to get 100% shock magnitude, allowing us to get a lot more damage to the build. Then finally, we're going to be coming down with main points and stuff into Crushing Wave to get increased damage if we doubt a crit, which we're always critting and stuff. And then like Flow Like Water is really nice for the attack and cast speed. And then finally, we are going to be taking a few points into Essence of the Mountain. I found not having like Essence of the Mountain put us at a disadvantage on chain clearing and stuff with the cast on freeze. So taking it allows us to get some freeze build up plus extra damage, which is really nice, allowing it to be a lot more consistent on clearing and stuff like that. As for the jewels that we are running a controlled Metamorphosis with a massive ring, going obviously for the lowest negative elemental res and negative cast res we can on there. And that allows us to go in stuff like Moment of Truth for increased crit chance, going down into like Wildstorm for more maximum lightning damage, since we still do lightning and stuff like that with Requiem, and for the explosive shot we're still doing lightning damage. Staggering Palm, again, critical damage bonus, increased fizz, all that is good stuff. We're also going to be going with a Against the Darkness Time Lost Diamond. We do have 4% damage as extra lightning here, so it takes full effect on like all these big notables and stuff like that. If you can't get one that is double increased damage, so like, you know, extra damages like Chaos or Cold or Fire or anything like that, we'll add more DPS to the build, but those are pretty expensive. So again, just the damages extra lightning is good enough, and then anything else rolled on there. We are running just a normal rare like Time Lost Emerald. We want to look for upgrade radius to medium, and then honestly just look for like increased crit chance for attacks. Anything else you can roll on top of that's going to be really good. So like you could do like increase projectile damage, increase, you know, damage with crossbows, attack speed, damage against rare unique enemies, like anything like that is going to be really good. Just try to look for a combination, but make sure you have upgrades radius to medium and crit chance on your Time Lost Emerald. And then finally, the last thing that we are running is a From Nothing Diamond. So with Mind Over Matter on a From Nothing, we can come at the top of the tree here. And normally I would anoint Storm Charged, but obviously we don't need to do that. We can actually free up a point because we don't need to throw it in Breaking Point, right? We can just do Weapon Set 2 for that magnitude. And then also, which is main points, we can go in Storm Charge. So we're getting that crit chance and that increased elemental damage if we've dealt a crit recently, which we always are. And then we're also going to get increased elemental damage and reses. But that pretty much covers it for the build. That's the full tree, Ascendancy Jewels, all that good stuff covered. Like I said, the build is an absolute blast to play. We're doing tons of damage. It's really fun to run Requiem and Crossbow and stuff, and, you know, run the explosive shot with the full chain clear looping with cast on freeze. Overall, I'm really happy where the build is at, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it as well. Obviously, if you guys do enjoy these type of videos and you're liking what I'm doing on the channel, if you consider hitting a like on the video and a sub to the YouTube channel, it definitely helps me out a lot, and it helps with the YouTube algorithm, and currently that is the best way to support me. I also should be live streaming on Twitch and YouTube. The link for that will be in the description as well as the comment section of the video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night depending on watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.